Hello and welcome to another edition of Comics and Pop. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Troy Cannon and Carlos Hidaraga, and tonight we're going to talk about the Werewolf by Night from Marvel out on Disney Plus now. I'm going to take it to you guys in a second. I will say that I really enjoyed it. We're going to do probably a She-Hulk episode later on to finish it up, but I really enjoyed Werewolf by Night, so get the She-Hulk stench out of my mouth. But anyway, but I'm going to take it to initial thoughts. Troy, let's start with you.
Okay. I may have one or two Werewolf by Night. I didn't like it as a comic because I wasn't really big into the horror stuff. I am now, but then I wasn't. I wanted a just superheroes. I didn't really watch it, read it that much. But one of the first things that I noticed recently that I should have noticed growing up all these years, his name is Jack Russell, and that's the name of a dog. I never noticed that, man. I never noticed that. I was talking to somebody and I was like,
yeah, dawning in your
yeah, there's the guy was talking to me. He said, "Man, there's a light bulb above your head," and I was like, "Cause I just got it." And all those years, I never knew, But now, it's like if Batman's real name was Face Puncher, I'd be like, I just didn't get it. But I enjoyed this. I like the fact that they brought in the man thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I didn't really dig the way he looked. He looked comic book accurate, but he looked kind of hokey. And for the billions of dollars that they got, seemed like they could have done better. But maybe they're saving that for something in the future. I enjoyed the story. I especially enjoyed the whole black and white. Let me take it back to the 80s kind of a feel of the story and everything. It was interesting.
I think this is going way further back than that.
Well, yeah, maybe even the 60s, 70s. But I think that it would, I'm not sure what they're going to do with it in the future unless they do, Midnight Suns or something like that. I may have said Midnight Suns before in the past, but I'm going to say it now. I think they're going to do it. They've introduced almost the entire Doctor Strange, Blade, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider's coming, and they introduced Moon Knight. They got basically the whole team's already set up. So, we'll see what happens. But I enjoyed it.
Carlos, initial thoughts?
I'm not saying anything until you take back what you said about She-Hulk.
This is going to be a really long podcast then.
But so I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I mean, it wasn't as good as She-Hulk, but I guess that's for next week when we talk about She-Hulk, right? But I definitely enjoyed it. It's funny because what you said about what Troy said about the 80s and stuff, the black and white, right? Those black and white movies are from like the 30s and 40s and stuff. and that's actually the thing that I kind of like was like, because I remember I remember being a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, right? And watching horror movies, and the older people would say, "Oh man, watch the old classics, from the 30 whatever, Frankenstein or whatever." And I hated those movies. I thought they were so corny, they were horrible, because I was always into what we're seeing now. I was into Friday the 13th and Freddy. Those are totally different than the old school Frankenstein. I mean, obviously, as I got older, I learned, to respect them because, they're classic heroes and stuff, whatever, classic monster movies and stuff. So I get it. I understand what they were trying to do. I respect the fact that they were trying to do something different, and kind of like pay homage to that era, right? Being that, they've been introducing the monsters, and, it looks like, we're going to, like you said, we have a team of monsters coming in the near future. And obviously it was laid out in this show, because basically Werewolf by Night Russell, right, Jack Russell, he was there to save the Man-Thing, right? He wasn't there to compete to get the Bloodstone. He was there to save, to save the Man-Thing. So obviously somebody told him, or he knew that they had captured him. He was there, so he was there to rescue him, right? So obviously, they're friends. So there's got to be some kind of a little crew going on, right? One of the cool things about Marvel is that the Marvel monsters is that they've kind of made them, they're heroes, right? The whole premise of the show is that obviously Alyssa's Bloodstone, who's a historic monster hunter, passes away, and he wants to pass on the Bloodstone, which they use to hunt monsters to another monster hunter, and that's why they're having this hunt, whatever. And it was cool to see that Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, he was playing one of the monster hunters to go in there to save an actual monster, being that he is a monster himself. But in the Marvel universe, we have monsters who actually are good, and they fight evil monsters basically. So the fact that was introduced, and we have a lot of that coming, is pretty cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely, to me, it had that feel. They try to pay homage to those 30 monster movies, which I like. I used to grow up on those too. I used to watch those all the time, so those were fun for me. And yeah, I mean, the Man-Thing was not great special effects, but I also thought it was like, again, paying those style of movies. It definitely had a fun vibe in it for me. And all I could think about watching it too is, besides this fun vibe, this 1930s movie feel, like the music and the setting and the whole ambiance, I kept thinking the same thing. Midnight Suns is coming. And I kept waiting to see, I'm going, figuring out how that's going to introduce, interact with Blade and interact with Ghost Rider, all these characters together. And like you guys, I love Man-Thing. I love Man-Thing comic. I loved all the things about it. I used to look forward anytime that he, besides his own comic, anytime that he appeared in any other comic, I would like go and snatch that up, wanting to get it. So yeah, this was so much fun for me just to be able to watch and see. I thought they did a great job with it. And was it a high concept, high classic? It wasn't like the special effects or anything, but it's just a fun, campy feel to it the whole way. So like it was definitely.
It wasn't at She-Hulk level.
I think it was on the graphic. The special effects were on par with She-Hulk. Storyline, I think, was still She-Hulk. But we will discuss She-Hulk when we get to that last episode this week. But yeah, this was definitely a lot of fun. What are some of the things that we did like about it that we didn't, and where do we see this going now? So let's go back to Troy.
Well, something that I noticed, they had what I would consider a Wolverine / Hulk thing that happened. It was really quick, but when they're showing the monsters, I watch it, and then I go through it frame by frame, click, 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 just so I could see what, because there's always, they hide stuff in there. So I'm clicking through, I'm trying to recognize the monster, saying to myself, I bet I know who that is. And I was wrong. I was wrong like a lot of times, because I would think I knew, and then I would zoom in, because sometimes up under it, it would say like Ulysses, he's standing on a mountain and he's like looking at Giant in the face. And I was like, okay, who's that? And it said Ulysses kills a Bigfoot, or a Sasquatch, otherwise known as a Bigfoot. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that could lead to the Canadian superheroes. That could be Sasquatch from what is Alpha Flight?
Alpha Flight, yeah.
That could be that kind of a thing. So now I'm thinking, okay, all right, so maybe these are tie-ins. There's one creature that wasn't named that Ulysses fought, that there was nothing up under it or nothing, and he's fighting it, and it's as big as the Bigfoot, but it had really long flowing white hair. I will bet a shiny nickel that was a Wendigo. And I'm thinking, okay, well, Wolverine, Incredible Hulk thing, Wendigos, if they exist, that was in the comics, not the cartoon, but in the comics, that was what drew them together to have their big fight in their first meeting. So I'm thinking, okay, well, they're introducing that dude. slick, sly. It was quick. It was 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, it was on the screen for a few seconds, but I saw that, and that was, for me personally, that was one of the biggest takeaways. Was I think I saw Wendigo in there, man, and it would be a monster,
That
Canadian
would be cool
monster.
to
So
see if Wendigo comes out in this.
yeah, that would be real cool. And the drawing, I kind of like the way that they did it. And the next thing for me was I was wondering, well, how come Blade didn't show up here? Because if you've got a magic stone that's going to kill monsters, Blade specifically is just going around killing vampires. He'd want something like that. So I'm surprised he's not one of the hunters that showed up.
I was expecting Blade to come on in a post-credit scene. I was like, the whole way I was thinking, oh, he's going to show, and it never happened. So,
or a mention or something,
right.
Honorable mention. You killed 57, you killed 107, almost as much as our big winner, Blade, with 475. I was expecting something, throw something his way, but nothing.
No, I was expecting just some mention, like they had that thing like at the beginning, the whole Avengers at the end of Iron Man, when Nick Fury comes up. I was expecting something to like at the end of post credit. Let's do this team of monster hunters or something like that. Someone walking in to like approach. Nothing came. I was disappointed with that.
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity, I think.
Carlos?
So, well, it would have been cool to see Blade, but I kind of understand why. I guess because we know that there's a Blade movie coming out, so maybe they're waiting to introduce him, in the big screen. And supposedly, the whole Blade movie is kind of like up in arms right now because the director quit and the actor, Ali, is not happy.
I'm not having a good feeling with that right now.
Yeah, he's not happy with the script, blah blah blah. So maybe that's why they left them out. What I really liked about it was the same as you, Jonathan. The Man Thing. I love the Man Thing. Right, Man Thing is one of the cooler heroes that I remember growing up, and I actually collected the comics. I actually, thanks to Werewolf by Night, I've actually made some really good money because usually I show you guys first appearances and stuff. I've sold like 3 of my, earlier first appearances of the Man Thing the past couple of weeks. I've sold them and made some good money on them. So thank you, Werewolf by Night, for, enriching my pockets and stuff. But yeah, Man Thing is always cool. Obviously, for those who don't know his origin, his name is Dr. Ted Salas, and he was a guy who was experimenting with Captain America serum, right? He was in the swamps in the Everglades, actually in Florida, and he injected himself. He had a car accident, went to the Everglades, and absorbed all the stuff from the Everglades and became the Man Thing, right? So he's one of the cooler. His story I always thought was cool. I enjoyed his comics. I enjoyed his looks. I understand a little bit of what Troy was saying about the look. It kind of looked a little off, but it was also very comic accurate. It looked exactly like the comics. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I want to see if I don't know if he would warrant enough for them to have a Man Thing movie, because I haven't heard them say anything about it. But I could see him as being part of the team, kind of like a Groot member, like you have Groot. Right, in the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Man Thing would be kind of like the Groot kind of character, funny, cool character, because he's a little funny as well, right? So I could see him.
Well, every time she saw like Ted, and every time like she said Ted, and like he stopped,
Right. So yeah, so I thought the Man Thing was really cool, so I was really excited about that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, the coming of of what we know of the Midnight Suns, and and Ghost Rider and Blade, and Werewolf by Night now, and Morbius we already know of.
What are they saying on the Midnight Suns? I mean, the last we heard, it is a go, right? I mean, they are talking about it.
They are talking about it, yeah. Obviously, this is all leading up to it. They're laying the groundwork for it and stuff, right? So they're are introducing all the characters, just like they did with the Avengers, right? The Avengers, you had all the movies, you had Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, you had Hulk, you had all the movies come out before. Okay, now we have the Avengers, so they're kind of like slowly and surely introducing them, with Moon Knight and everything. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it, man. Sorry, I'm watching football back here because I'm very into our podcast, right? But we always have it on nights when sporting events are happening. So
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when Man Thing first appeared on the screen, there may have been a squeal for me, like, like, one of the, like, so I am
Now
looking forward
he's got a movie.
with Man Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2004, they made it. They made it was like a campy movie. I remember.
Like an HBO,
Yeah.
HBO movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
remember
got
that
it in
one.
my closet.
Yeah, it came out like in 05, 04, around there, like 15 years ago. I remember what it wasn't the best movie in the world, but he does have a movie. Right. But it's not, it's one of those, I guess, it wasn't part of the MCU, obviously, because this was, 15, almost 20 years ago. So, but when did the MCU start actually? Around the same time, no?
The
But I mean,
2008, isn't that the
uh,
when Iron Man came out? Isn't that the first one?
oh wait, yeah,
the modern
yeah, but
MCU?
right, yeah, obviously it wasn't linked to to the MCU, so now he is. So
Here it is, Man Thing. Oh, I'm gonna have to watch this.
Yeah, he was ripping people apart,
yeah,
fighting
yeah,
over an oil rig. It was pretty good.
yeah.
2005
It's a
movie.
pretty cool movie.
I've never seen this.
It was a fun movie.
If we were neighbors, I'd let you borrow it, man. I got it in my
It's
closet.
on Amazon. I am gonna have to watch this. We might.
Oh, it's on Amazon. Oh, I'm gonna watch it on there then. Yeah.
So, but no, this was fun. I kept on, like I said, I want to see now a Midnight Suns movie. I really want to see them all. I'm scared of the Blade because I'm hearing all these bad things with Blade right now, and the original Blade was really good. I really enjoyed the original Blade. Blade 2 was like, but the original Blade was really good. And I'm afraid that they're going to ruin this movie. I just am having such a bad feeling with all the press that I'm hearing about it. And I want to see Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider was always also one of my favorite characters. So I'm hoping that they do Ghost Rider right, right now and see and get this in there because I love Moon Knight. So we're almost there. Just don't ruin Ghost Rider for me. Do not ruin Ghost Rider, please.
I just have a bad feeling about everything that's coming out, man, because I think that Marvel might have peaked with Endgame. That's because ever since Endgame, they've had decent stuff come out, right? But I mean, nothing is compared to Endgame.
Right.
Nothing is compared to the original, Daredevil series on Netflix, and that whole, Defenders stuff. And nothing is compared to everything that led up to Endgame and Endgame itself. So, I mean, from the looks of it, stuff that's coming out, and with all the additional things that are added, and we're kind of like, they shouldn't add that stuff, dealing with other things, and being politically correct and blah blah blah. I just have a feeling that we're going to be pretty much disappointed. So I'm kind of like, I think I'm kind of just taking everything for what it is. I think that's why I'm enjoying She-Hulk so much. I guess we'll talk about it next week because I'm not really, I just think it's fun and funny and whatever, So that's what I did with the Werewolf by Night. I watched it with my kids actually. It was cool, like them explaining to them, like the whole history of the Man thing and blah blah blah, and and it was kind of cool watching it. I'm not going into these. I'm not going into the Marvel universe anymore expecting, they're gonna mess this up because they've, all these characters, they've already did them. I mean, Man Thing, they already did Man Thing actually, but like you said, Ghost Rider, they're gonna mess up Ghost Rider. We already seen, 2 Ghost Rider movies. Blade, we've seen 3 Blade movies already. So they're just introducing them to the Marvel universe. The ones that I'm really worried about, that I'm really stressing about, are more like how are they going to do the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, because those are huge, major, and if they mess those up, then we're screwed. But little stuff like this, I'm just gonna take it for what it is and enjoy it, man.
Well, one thing I will say about this Werewolf by Night, and I don't think we've touched on, the werewolf.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good when he was coming down the hallway and his eyes were white and he was like a black outline. And I was like, that's terrifying. That would probably make me run out of the house, or wherever I was at. That was scary looking.
All the budget was used on the werewolf. That's why there was nothing left for the Man Thing, you're saying. So.
I guess, yeah, and something else. I could have sworn that those were TVA agents running around with those sticks and everything, but it wasn't. They never said who it was. They just appeared out of nowhere and started beating him. So I was like, well, they must work here or something. You know, they just
Right.
ran out of the woodworks. It was like, ah, like the
They were
minions or
blood
something.
stuff,
And
yeah.
started swinging sticks. You know, that probably would have been the night I quit. I'd have been like, what? There's a what in the building? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Go ahead and send my check to the house.
it was fun, just like to me, people getting chopped in the head, arms getting, lopped off, and in this.
Yeah.
So this was just all like
It was cool. Yeah, it was cool. For
violent.
overall, like, yeah, it was gory and stuff like a monster movie, so that's
Right.
cool.
But like I said, I'm like you guys. I want to see what comes next. I want to see how this is all going to tie in. If there's going to be appearance in the greater Marvel universe now that the monsters can come in, which in the comics there are. In the comics we see all these creatures in there, even appearing with the mainstream heroes. So I'd like to see if that's going to ever come to fruition one day. Have them interact with each other. I'm like you guys. I'm like Carlos now. I did enjoy this. I don't expect much going forward. So maybe that'll be a good thing. So I won't be as disappointed if I go into it expecting everything to be trash. Then maybe it'll be pleasantly surprised. And
Right. Yeah, for me, the next big Marvel project that I'm, like I said, that I'm kind of like stressing over would be the Fantastic Four. I'm not even stressing. I mean, even the Black Panther, I'm not stressing because we kind of know how that's been changed around, and we're gonna have a female Black Panther, and how they changed Namor around and they changed the backstory. So I already know this, so it's not something that I'm gonna go in there and be surprised by.
I mean, we'll do a Black Panther episode when it comes. I'm not expecting much from this movie. Because we've spoken about it before. I thought that they should have recast instead of just not have a Black Panther. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. So overall, what do we give this? What do we give Werewolf by Night?
Oh, I would give it a 7.5. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. It wasn't the best of the Marvel shows. It wasn't anywhere near the worst. It was fun. I would have done a couple of things differently. But I mean, I understand why they did what they did with honoring the old school black and white movies. And I think there's so many complex characters, like the Man Thing is a complex character, Werewolf by Night's a complex, the whole Bloodstone history is complex, that maybe it would have been cool to have it as maybe like a miniseries, like a 6-show series or something like that. It would have been cool, leading up
I thought it was going to be that. I was surprised it was just a one.
Right, that's what I think eventually was supposed to be. So the fact that they made it into a movie kind of takes a lot out of the backstory of everything that goes into this, right? So, but I mean, overall, it was a 7.5. I would definitely recommend it.
Troy?
That's almost exactly what I was thinking. 7.5. I think that Marvel's going to start doing that, doing their Marvel specials and do like a one shot, like the comic books that they used to do, where there'd be a one shot. So we may get maybe a one shot for all of their entries into the Midnight Suns is what I'm expecting. They may one shot this, one shot that, yada yada, maybe a crossover here or there. But I think they might do something like that. That would be kind of cool. And then there's a bunch of monsters that save the day for some reason against an even worse monster or alien or something.
Well, the werewolf was kind of good here.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I didn't
he
not hate it.
Killed her and he didn't.
That's right. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
I growing up, the werewolf was always the bad guy. Right. And Frankenstein was always the bad guy, Frankenstein would mistake a flower for a little girl, throw it in the water. That's bad. Werewolf shows up, everybody's getting eviscerated, even if he doesn't eat you. He never really ate anybody. He just tore you up. He was a bad guy. The only good monster when I was a kid was this little fat bald ghost that would float around. Casper. He was a friendly ghost. But aside from that, everybody else, all the monsters were monsters. I
always thought the werewolf was a misunderstood thing because he had no control over everything.
Well, it's like an avalanche. An avalanche has absolutely no control. But if you get in the way, your mom is buying a black dress Monday because avalanches do not care. I agree. The werewolf is like an avalanche. It's coming. If you get out of the way in time, you're okay. If not, be some sad songs singing and flower bringing. But I think that I enjoyed it, and I would like to see what they do with it now that they're sticking their pinky toe into some horror. We've already had magic. We've already had space and aliens. We've already had super soldiers of a wide variety. We've already had, super mechanics. Now it's time for the monsters. We've already had the other dimensions. They've mentioned the other dimensions. So now it's monsters. Throw the monsters in there. And I'd like to see where they go. Real quick, speaking of monsters, I hope you guys watch Supernatural, because tomorrow night they're doing the Winchester.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait for that.
We might have to do an episode. I love Supernatural. Supernatural is a great show.
Yeah.
I've never watched it.
Now think about it.
Of course. I've never watched it, of course.
You've never seen it?
Episodes too.
I've never seen it.
It's one of the best shows.
It's an X-Files.
I've heard of it, but I just never watched it. I don't know why.
Well, I'm gonna give Werewolf by Night an 8, just because I thought it was fun, and just the way that the honoring of the previous, it did a great job to me of honoring all those 30s, monster flicks, the Universal monsters, like Frankenstein, the Mummy, and Wolfman. I thought it did a great job of honoring that, just the whole tone of it. So I am giving it an 8, and I want to see where it goes. I'm definitely curious to see where it goes. Well, anyway, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you liked it, didn't like it, agree, disagree, what you're looking forward to. And as always.
And listen, one last thing before we go, guys. Remember, this show wasn't really. It was kind of like a filler episode, because next week we do She-Hulk.
I got so much to say. I got so much. But as always, I'm Jonathan, along with Joy and Carlos, and this has been Comics and Pop. And please subscribe.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.